Most people do not recognize the 12th house when it begins to malfunction. They think they have a sleep issue. They think they have stress. They think they are just overthinking. They think they are tired because life is demanding, but that is often too superficial. What is really happening is that the body's restoration intelligence is losing coordination. And that is exactly why the 12th house deserves serious attention, because the 12th house is not only about endings, losses, isolation, or withdrawal. It is one of the most important houses for recovery. It governs sleep, dreams, restful state, feet, lymphatic movement, subconscious processing, fluid release, and deeper neurological regulatory rhythms. When this house is disturbed by Vata, the issue is not just that the person feels off. The issue is that the mechanisms which are supposed to restore order are no longer stabilizing properly. That one point alone should change how you read charts. When Vata rises in the 12th house, rest and recovery become unstable. That instability then begins expressing through very specific regulatory patterns: melatonin irregularity, stress hormone spikes at night, irregular appetite signaling, adrenal fatigue style depletion, fragmented sleep and anxious subconscious, poor lymphatic movement, and cold extremities. In simple language, dissolution itself becomes unstable. The person cannot descend cleanly into repair. Now pause there. That phrase matters. The person cannot descend cleanly into repair. This is why some people sleep and still wake depleted. This is why some people lie down exhausted and yet feel internally alert. This is why some people are physically still at night but biologically unsettled. The 12th house is supposed to help the organism release. Vata here makes release irregular. And once you understand that, the planets on this slide start making profound sense. Let us begin with Saturn, because Saturn is one of the clearest indicators of the problem. Saturn is cold, dry, restrictive, slow, chronic, and deeply Vata in nature. Saturn suppresses flow and reduces ease. So when Saturn influences the 12th house field, what happens? Sleep becomes effortful. Recovery becomes incomplete. The body may feel fatigued, but the nervous system remains restrained, stiff, vigilant, or depleted. Saturn does not just produce insomnia. It produces non-restorative time. It produces a pattern where the organism cannot properly replenish. Chronic fatigue signatures, cold extremities, suppressed circulation, long-standing depletion, and a hardening of inner softness can all come through this kind of Saturnian influence. Now bring in Moon. Moon is crucial because Moon governs rhythm, fluid regulation, emotional tone, nourishment, and the mind's ability to settle. If Moon is disturbed in relation to the 12th house, then night does not become a place of restoration. It becomes a place of fluctuation. The mind becomes more active when it should become receptive. Appetite signals become irregular. Hormonal rhythm becomes less coherent. Emotional residue rises at the wrong hour. Moon here tells you whether the person can soften into sleep or whether the inner waters have become unstable. Then comes Venus. Venus is not just pleasure. Venus is also bodily ease, lubrication, fluid intelligence, hormonal softness, and the capacity to receive comfort. In a 12th house Vata pattern, Venus can show that the person seeks soothing but cannot hold it. There may be a craving for peace, beauty, intimacy, or relief, but the body does not fully register safety. The person may pursue relaxation externally, yet remain dysregulated internally. This is an extremely important distinction for healers. The desire for rest is not the same thing as the physiological ability to enter rest. Venus reveals that gap beautifully. Now let us go to Rahu. Rahu magnifies regularity. Rahu inflates subtle disturbance into pronounced unrest. In the 12th house field, Rahu can create nighttime overstimulation, stress spikes, exaggerated subconscious activity, intrusive thinking, vivid dream excess, and fear amplification after dark. So if Saturn gives you chronic depletion, Rahu gives you heightened dysregulation. Rahu does not merely prevent sleep. It can make the person feel psychically overclocked. It can make the night feel louder than the day. And then Ketu. Ketu is subtle, but do not underestimate it. Ketu reduces, disconnects, and fragments. Where Rahu can create excess firing, Ketu can create deficit, withdrawal, dissociation, or a strange lack of coherence. In relation to the 12th house, Ketu can show sleep that does not integrate, rest that does not nourish, withdrawal from embodiment, hormonal depletion patterns, or a diffuse inability to feel psychologically gathered. The person may not even describe it dramatically. They may simply say, I don't feel fully here, or I rest but I don't recover. That is a very Ketu-like clue. Now, this is the level at which you must learn to think. Not just a 12th house equals sleep, not just Vata equals insomnia, not just Rahu causes anxiety. That is beginner astrology. The real work is to read the pattern architecture. Is the dysfunction primarily chronic and cold like Saturn, rhythmically and emotionally unstable like Moon, softened but unabsorbed like Venus, amplified and overstimulated like Rahu, or fragmented and depleting like Ketu? Because each of those will change how the 12th house Vata story expresses. And when you start reading it that way, a whole cluster of symptoms that looked unrelated suddenly belong to one coherent field. Fragmented sleep, anxious subconscious activation, poor lymphatic movement, cold feet, nighttime stress activation, irregular appetite signals, and weak restoration response. This is why the 12th house is so important in healing astrology. It shows you whether the person's shutdown cycle is healthy. It shows you whether the body can release into recovery. It shows you whether solitude restores them or destabilizes them. It shows you whether the night repairs them or exposes them. That is a powerful diagnostic lens. And for many people, that is the missing piece. They are not failing because they are weak. They are not failing because they lack discipline. They are trying to operate on a system whose restorative base has become irregular. So if you are a healer, do not only ask how active the person is. Ask how well they dissolve. If you are an astrology student, do not only study what energizes a house. Study what happens when the house can no longer perform its natural restorative function. That is where chart reading becomes truly useful. If this helped you see the 12th house in a sharper, more practical way, stay with this series. Subscribe, keep following these house by house breakdowns, and keep training yourself to read planets not as isolated symbols, but as forces acting on the body, the mind, the hormones, the emotions, and the recovery mechanisms of the human system. Because once you learn to identify where recovery breaks down, you stop doing symbolic astrology alone. You start doing astrology that can actually see the person.